Today we will commission Cadet Max Cukurs as a second lieutenant in the United States Army. Family and friends who traveled to Moscow, thank you for joining us on this momentous occasion. And for those joining us online, thank you for taking part in this ceremony as well. Your presence and support for our new officer is greatly appreciated. We encourage you to post in the comments to make the ceremony as interactive as possible. We ask you now to rise for the playing of our national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, Cadet Cukurs will now receive his university degree from President C. Scott Green and Provost Torrey Lawrence.
Now Provost Lawrence will announce the granting of university degrees.
Degrees will be granted to all candidates who have met the requirements for the baccalaureate degree, the requirements set forth by the faculty at the University of Idaho, and have been completed through formal study. Degrees will be conferred on all candidates present today. Will the candidates for the University of Idaho baccalaureate degree please stand? President Green, these candidates are recommended by their respective faculty to be awarded the baccalaureate degree.
By the virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Regents of the University of Idaho, I hereby confer upon each of you the bachelor's degree earned with all its rights, honors, privileges, and responsibilities, in testimony whereof you will receive the diploma of the University of Idaho. Congratulations.
Go Vandals!
Woo!
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now hear remarks from Major General Eric Peterson, University of Idaho, class of 1986.
Good day, friends, fellow soldiers, cadets, and cadre of the Christmas Battalion. Thank you for the honor and privilege of allowing me to share in your commissioning, an important milestone and an important tradition that we're sustaining despite the unprecedented conditions. Most importantly, welcome and thank you the friends and families of today's honorees. Your participation, even if virtual, makes the ceremony all the more special, and it underscores the importance of family in our chosen profession. To our honorees and soon-to-be lieutenants, I'm exceptionally proud of you, and I genuinely appreciate the dedication, commitment, and determination that brought you to this point. Those characteristics will be essential to your future success, and they will be tried and tested time and time again. You may not realize it, but you are about to join a rather selective portion of our society. A mere 25% of our nation's young adults are physically, legally, or educationally even eligible for military service. All told, less than 1% of our nation's population has the honor of serving the military in uniform. All branches, all services, active and reserve, less than 1%. All volunteers, vanguards of our nation's freedoms and our way of life, envied by our friends and allies and feared by enemies, tyrants, and oppressors worldwide. Of that proportionally small force, only 15% represent the commissioned officer corps, charged with competently and confidently leading and caring for our nation's finest sons and daughters, training them, sharing hardship, instilling discipline and esprit de corps, and most importantly, providing them with a conspicuous, positive personal example. Even more impressive is the fact that most of our current force, to include the fine cadets who join our officer corps today, made a conscious, deliberate decision to volunteer for military service in a time of known, persistent conflict. Although not really a nation at war, we are certainly an army at war. You selflessly stepped forward with the full understanding that you may well be placed in harm's way soon. The strategic landscape is considerably different and arguably much more volatile than when I was a member of the University of Idaho's Christman Battalion in the early 80s. The all-volunteer force that you will lead is increasingly diverse. It reflects the cross-section and richness of our very nation. Yet despite this diversity, we all share a common foundation. We all begin our service by swearing an oath not to a man nor to a flag, but a solemn oath to the ideals and principles embodied in our Constitution. Ideals and principles that cannot be killed, trampled, or defaced. Ideals and principles that are held firmly in the hearts and minds of our collective citizenry. Our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, to include those being commissioned today, honor that oath and our nation through their sustained sacrifice, determination, and courage. As Americans, we do not have a deed on liberty. We have a lease that must be renewed every generation, a lease signed by these exceptional aspiring leaders. So what now? What's expected of you? You are now part of an honored vocation whose lineage began nearly 245 years ago with the struggle for liberation of our own nation, and one that has spanned both generations and the globe. For nearly 2.5 centuries, every generation of our U.S. military has faced challenges. In the eyes of many, those you will face are uniquely complex and daunting. The scourge of Islamic extremism is spreading and continues to undermine stability in the Middle East, Africa, and increasingly in Central and East Asia. Iran's aspirations and proxy wars in the Gulf region threaten to spur major regional conflict. North Korea remains unpredictable and extremely dangerous as an existential threat to millions, but also a threat to the world economy. Russia is in decline, economically and demographically, fueling a desperate and dangerous opportunism, which has been both declared and demonstrated. China, on the other hand, is on the rise, and as a growing world power, clearly aspiring regional hegemon, is increasingly in conflict with the interest of its neighbors, many of whom are our allies. And it is expanding actions beyond competition to now directly challenge U.S. influence. And to our south, economic strife, transnational criminal enterprises, authoritarianism, and growing political conflict all conspire to fuel instability. All of this atop our growing and ongoing commitments to enduring conflicts. And most recently, a global pandemic with resultant human and economic effects certain to destabilize nations, invite opportunism, and feed further conflict and strife. Although we have an exceptionally poor record of predicting accurately the future, I believe that it is reasonable to assume that you will lead our magnificent young service members in uniquely turbulent and challenging times. You will lead them in not only protecting our nation and way of life, but also in protecting others, freeing the oppressed, toppling tyrants, preventing atrocities, and giving millions their first glimpse of basic human liberty and the hope of a better tomorrow. You will demonstrate strength and compassion as you and those you lead contribute personally to the victories and the triumphs, and bear witness to the tragic human toll of armed conflict. You will experience firsthand the very best and the very worst of humanity. You and those you lead will sacrifice greatly, and some may fall valiantly by the side of their comrades. Yet steadfast, resolute, determined, undaunted by the stark reality of your chosen vocation, you will embrace the challenge and you will lead with courage. You will set the example of quiet professionalism, skilled, confident, and unflappable, but also self-effacing and humble. You will shun the limelight and defer credit to your subordinates. And despite that humble underpinning, you will have plenty of reason to be proud. You and those you lead will thrive where few are capable, and fewer still have the courage to try. You will endure where most lack the character and determination to persist. You will voluntarily relinquish many of the very rights you protect, and you will be held to a higher standard by not only military regulation and culture, but also by the citizens you serve, and you will undoubtedly meet their expectations. And by doing so, you will contribute not only to defending our nation, but also to sustaining our nation's confidence in our armed forces. The single institution most consistently and overwhelmingly admired and trusted by the citizenry of our great nation. This may all sound overwhelming, but you are ready and you are armed for success. You understand the profession of arms, you know what it means to be a leader of character and the importance of standards and discipline. You will remain current and relevant through personal dedication and self-study. You will be introspective, you will seek criticism, and you will adapt and grow. And you will set the conditions for those around you to do the same. Your chosen vocation is not a solitary undertaking. Your duty will take you and your families across the breadth of our great nation and to the far-flung corners of our globe. Both your burden and your accomplishments will be shared with your families, parents, spouses, children, siblings, all who will endure with you the lonely holidays, the missed special occasions, the uncertainty when you're inevitably in harm's way, the vagabond lifestyle, and who will also enjoy with you the unique experiences and camaraderie of military service and military families. Without the support and sacrifice of our magnificent families, our armed forces could not endure, and our nation's security would falter. In closing, I'd like to pose a final question. Given the rigors and the hazard of this vocation, why have you chosen to serve? I dare not attempt to speak for you, nor for any other in uniform, but from a personal perspective, I need not look further than the faces of my daughters, or to any of our children for that matter. I, for one, believe that good and evil exist in our world, and that evil must be countered. I believe that I am, and you are, part of an honorable institution, an institution that is necessary, an institution that can be wielded justly and wisely to defend our liberties, defeat tyranny, and relieve oppression and strife. I believe that you and I must be prepared to do difficult things now, so that our children may not have to, so that their future, their world, may be better than ours. I also believe that no one prays for peace more fervently nor passionately than a service member. But when called upon to act, we must. Like many of you here, those who have served in uniform and those who are in uniform now, I am often inspired by the words of old sages and wise leaders. And among my favorites are the thoughts of a particularly insightful gentleman who lived in troubled times many centuries ago. Isaiah chapter 6, verse 8. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" And I said, "Here am I, send me." Congratulations, Christmas Battalion, lieutenants. May God bless our nation, our service members, and their families.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Professor of Military Science at the University of Idaho, Lieutenant Colonel Seth View.
Alan Joy, Cukurs family, I really want to thank you for making the trip to Moscow to join us today. Max came into the program later than most. I remember my first conversation with him, and I immediately thought, wow, this is an intelligent kid. He's fit, he's bursting with potential, but I could also tell that he was maybe a little shy. Maybe he lacked a little confidence, and when he started in, he looked left and right at the other people who've been doing this a while, and I think he was a little slow to gain that confidence. He went to basic camp, proved a little bit about himself, came back his MS3 year, put his nose to the grindstone, and got to work, and he proved himself what I knew all along, that he had everything he needed. The tools were all there to be a very successful Army officer. He did well at advanced camp. He was a great teammate throughout his MS4 year. And, you know, I'm just really glad, Max, that you allowed the Chrisman Battalion to be the vehicle you chose to serve and continue your family's impressive legacy of service to our country. And Alan, I just want to say, I really sitting there watching you during that. I want you to know that I am totally confident that he's going to make your family, our Army, and our country proud by what he does over the next couple of years. His academic, achievement is so impressive, but even more impressive to me is that he has academic ambition. He's curious. He thinks critically, and he knows how to solve problems. That's going to serve him well. I'm really happy that he's standing here with me today, and I'm really looking forward to making a lieutenant of you.
Woohoo!
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand while our new officer takes the oath of office.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Max Cukurs,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance to the same,
That I take this obligation freely,
that I take this obligation freely,
without mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
without mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
And that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Lieutenant Cukurs.
Yay!
Please be seated. Each officer receives their commission directly from the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, the Honorable Donald Trump. For the Army, it is signed by Secretary of the Army Ryan McCarthy. This certificate serves as an outward sign of the faith and confidence afforded all commissioned officers. I will now read this commission aloud. I ask all current and former military members in attendance to please rise. To all who shall see these presents, greeting. Know ye that reposing special trust and confidence in the patriotism, valor, fidelity, and abilities of Max Cukurs, I do appoint him a second lieutenant in the United States Army on this 16th day of May, 2020. These officers will therefore carefully and diligently discharge the duties of the office to which appointed by doing and performing all manner of things thereunto belonging. And I do strictly charge and require those officers and other personnel of lesser rank to render such obedience as is due an officer of this grade and position. And these officers are to observe and follow such orders and directions from time to time as may be given by the President of the United States of America or other superior officers acting in accordance with the laws of the United States of America. This commission is to continue in force during the pleasure of the President of the United States of America under the provisions of those public laws relating to officers of the Armed Forces of the United States of America and the component thereof in which this appointment is made. Done at the city of Moscow, Idaho, this 16th day of May, in the year of our Lord 2020, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 244th, by the President, the Honorable Donald J. Trump, and the Secretary of the Army, the Honorable Ryan McCarthy. Please be seated. We now invite those family and friends who will participate in the commission